So with this system, right, we're going to now build the guardrail, and we're going to build it as an attachment on the side of this platform, right? So we can consider a few things, right? This is where you start playing chess in your mind, all right? The section, I'm going to do another just quick drawing. I don't like that. I wish we had blue beam in here. Anyway, so the section looks like this. It's got a platform, and then we're going to build our guardrail here like that. It's really hard to sketch with a mouse. Sorry. So we can consider a few things. We need to define how this thing is going to start at the bottom and how it's going to start at the top. So right off the bat, I can think of a few things. I can think of potentially taking this top surface and moving it down to be aligned with the bottom, and then creating a new surface from here to here and extruding it up. Or I could extrude the surface out from where it is, right here, and then go down as one, and then extrude up as another, and then join them together.
No, that's the first one.
Or I could go right back to the curve, which is at this point, and I could move it down, offset the curve, and then extrude it outwards, using exactly the same thing that I had here. So, you know, there are a few different ways that we can do it. I think that second one that you guys seemed to like was probably easier. So we're going to go with that.
The second one?
Yeah.
I never voted.
Well, you guys all seem to chime in, or a few of you. Well, by all, I mean there were like 3 of you who were like, oh yeah, let's do that.
Which one was the third one? No, the
The
first
one
one.
is here.
All right, let's take a vote. How many of you guys for the first one?
What's first
Was lowering the base plane and then moving it off to the side and extruding the whole thing up.
one?
So votes for number 1, votes for number 2,
Which one's this?
votes for number 3. All right, we're going to go with number 3. Okay. Number 3 was the curve-based one, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to have to go back to this. Preview. What side was that? It was this side. Okay. So this curve, the cool thing about curves now, because we're basically going to create a loft and then we're going to extrude that whole thing outward. Curves are very easy to offset, just like surface offset, right? So I can just go up to curve and utility, and I'm going to go to OffsetCrv. Now, OffsetCrv is going to do something pretty cool. If it's a 3-point curve like this, it will assume the orientation of the offset is very similar to the way we set up our surface normal analysis, right? It's going to assume a plane in the center, and then it's going to extrude it along that plane. So I'm going to go plug curve in, and you're going to see it already defaults to kind of moving down in the direction that I sort of wanted it to go. Not sort of, where I wanted it to go. So all I really need to do is plug in a distance. If for some reason yours is kind of shooting off into a different, direction, then you're going to need to assign it a plane. And luckily for you, that plane should be the frame for the surface normal right here. So theoretically, if I plug this in, it should still go in the same direction. It just might go, or along the same plane, the correct plane, it just might go in the opposite direction like mine did.
Mine doesn't.
I'll come take a look at yours specifically when we get there. But we're not doing very much in this video, so don't worry if you fall a little behind. So let's start taking care of the 2 surfaces, the 2 curves that we need to create the surface. We're going to need 1 curve offset in the negative direction and 1 curve offset in the positive direction. So I can just copy this, and then I'm going to put a slider for positive and negative. Now, I imagine I'm probably going to want to do one that's, say, a foot down, so a little bit farther down than the thickness of the slab. In fact, I have a better idea. So let's take one of these curves, say this one here. And it may be a good time now to clean it up and think about this as a more parametric family now, since we have all these wires that are connecting here. So what I'm going to do is rename this one base curve. And you can follow along with this one without getting behind. Call that one base curve, and I'll just plug this in and make that wireless. I'm not going to worry about that 3-step thing until it gets more complex, but let me pull this down here and plug it into both this curve and this curve. All right, so we're cleaning it up a little bit. I hear a lot of clicking, so I'm going to pause till you're ready. All right. Oh, shoot, I probably could have troubled that. Okay, guys, so so what we're going to do here is we're going to use that thickness for the slab, right? So it's going 6 inches down. I'm going to borrow that and use that for, and then add a certain number to it so that no matter how thick my slab is, the guardrail is going to adjust to it. So I'll just borrow this whole thing right here, copy, paste. And rather, well, actually I don't, sorry, I lied to you. Wait. I'm just trying to think if I want to take the division with it. So we have 6 inches. We're going to do another 6 inches, but we're going to have to add them. Yeah, we do want it all. Take it all. Just like this. And then we're going to go to math, operators, and addition. And I'm just going to add that 6 inches to this 6 inches. And I can plug that into this right here. Now, it happens to still be in the same place because it defaults to a value of 1. But in my case, my curve is going up. I need this one to go down. Yours might not do that. It depends on how you built your surface and which direction your curve was going when you did your extrusion. But if yours is going the wrong direction, you just need to pop in one of these negative operators here from math operators negative. And it's going to reverse the direction so that it goes down instead.
So do we need it to go up or down?
You need it to go down. Down. This one is going to go down. Okay, so that's one of them. So I did 6 inches for the slab. Remember that one? That's what that is right there.
Yes.
I'm now going another 6 inches. That's this right here. Plus that 6 inches in my negative direction to create a curve that is 6 inches below the thickness of my slab. The reason I'm doing that is if I change, let's look at this sort of analytically as an elevation here a little bit. If I change the thickness of the slab, that curve will adjust with it. So if I make it thinner, it'll follow it, and then if I make it thicker, it'll follow it as well. 6 inches below, no matter where it is. You guys see that? So, time to complete our thought, right? Similar to the way we developed our negative curve, I am going to create my positive curve to actually generate a guardrail. And that guardrail, the guardrail dimensions here are 42 inches. So we'll copy this, and I'm actually going to have to replace the slider because that one only goes up to 12 inches. I'm going to make this one, actually, well, yeah, let's just make this one static. We'll just do 48. I just don't feel like doing the math. Theoretically, we don't have to do that. We could just make it a value of 4, but, or 3.5, but, oh no, 48, 42 inches. So that gives you this curve right here. So quite a few operators, not that much geometry creation. All we did here was sort of tack in all these mathematical operators and then plugged them into these two offsets. That's all. So what are we going to do with these? We're going to loft them together, then we're going to extrude them. And that part's super, super easy. I'm going to go to Surface, Freeform, use Ruled Surface, plug those in. That creates my surface.
Yeah, you said loft first, and I was like, I thought you said math. Like, you said loft, but you meant to say ruled surface?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Ruled surface, yes. Thank you. Good catch. So I used ruled surface, and then I'm just going to extrude that, but I need to make sure I'm doing it in a, sort of a smart way. I can borrow a lot of the same information. So I can borrow extrude and amplify, and I'll even grab that, well, actually, all right. Let me just I'm just going to move this up a little bit and give myself some room. Yeah, I'll just copy them. Okay. Copy, paste, but all you need is extrude and amplify, really. The cool thing is that normal connection, this one right here, that's going straight back to the normal right there, that can stay. I just need to change the amplitude value. Right now it's going back to this slider. I want to change it to a different slider. So I'm going to make a custom slider here. I'm going to say, actually I'm going to use inches, like this. And I'll plug that in here. And then turn this extrusion on. We just plug in this ruled surface instead. And you see it's going to create the thickness for the material. Now it's going, you guys, I'm going to clean it up and make it all nice and neat for you to catch up. It's a lot of mathematical operators. It's not very much geometry creation, okay? So and let me just complete the thought and then I'll do that for you. But rather than having it extrude in, we want it to extrude out, which means we need to change this numerical output to a negative. So we'll go to Math, Operators, Negative, and we'll switch that there, and it's going to be on the outside of our bridge now. Okay? So let me go back and clean this up a little bit and make it a little bit easier for you to understand. Okay? Again, lots of mathematical operators, not very much actual geometry creation. So I think what I'm going to do is start to break these things out into different ideas, right? So I'm going to group this whole section. Whoops, I grabbed something I didn't want. I'm going to release you guys on a break to do some of this stuff too, but that whole idea right here, this is, I'm going to call this walkway extrusion. This whole section right here, this is, I'm going to call this base normal. That's obviously our base curve. That's where everything grows from. And then this whole section down here is what we just did. So it looks crazy. It's really not that crazy. We have, let's see, I don't really need those, but you might. We'll just leave it plugged in, I guess. We'll call this I'll just call it Guardrail. So you're going to need to see these values to be able to copy it. But think of it this way. The only things that we referenced from other ideas, right? Ideas meaning it's like a complete thought that created a complete geometry. We needed the surface normal that we used. That's our base normal. Then we just needed the thickness of the slab so that we could add to it. Everything else is pretty much standard. you may or may not have needed the frame. So, one last thought here, guys. This, before I close out, I just want to point out here, this looks like a lot of stuff, but this section, and that section are all exactly the same thing. It's just math, simple arithmetic. And then everything that comes to follow, the offset curve, the rule serve, the extrusion, that's all stuff that you've done 4 or 5 times already in the same definition. Making some sense? Starting to understand? I take your silence as a resounding yes.
Yeah.
Okay.